And okay, and so last week we talked about using a graphical user interface tool called the Campus and use that to manage your database. So this would allows you to create database collections and even insert documents online without having to write the code and use the command line tools, which may be what you've been doing so far. And so what I realized is actually you don't really need to use Campus, and you can just use the Atlas interface itself to do most of these things in terms of creating database and collections and so on and so forth. I'm gonna just show you quickly and using my Atlas account. So you go cloud.mongodb.com, so that's the URL for the MongoDB Atlas, and you log in. Hopefully it remembers the password. Okay, and so this is what would look like when you first log in. So because I'm already creating a database, let me see if if I need to, okay, so this is creating a cluster, which we don't need. I think the first thing you can do connect. No, not this one. That's the one we're going to be using later. Where is the option to create databases? Okay, and so I know you can just choose definitely, and you can choose just say the browse collections option. So the collection is the equivalent of tables in relational database. Here, one collection is how do I say, a group or set of the JSON documents. You can definitely say and create collections, and then you can see the database you have created. And for this module, I'm going to be using this as example. So here I have a database called Web Store, and I have 3 collections and order info. And if you can see if you click, and it actually shows there as well, orders and products. And you can create a new database here if you want. And so if you don't have one yet, you can just create a database here. And I'm pretty sure you can, so if you want to add new record, you can just choose insert documents, and you can just copy paste the JSON documents here. And I think you should be able to insert a collection as well. For example, I can click this plus sign, I assume, yeah, and that creates a new collection in the particular database. Okay, and so the point is, and you can still use Campus to do all these things, which will need to connect to the MongoDB and then say create database, collections, insert documents. But you can also see, as I did here, you can do all those just inside and Atlas itself. So I think where's the main view? Databases, yeah, and you choose browse connections, browse collections, and then you'll see all the database you have there. And you can add new database, create new database, create new collection, or you can also create a collection here. And once you open one of the collections, and you can insert documents. Okay, that's I want to say, and from last week. Okay, so last week we talked about the idea of different type of HTTP requests and how that maps to the database operations. We said by default you always do the GET request, which is the equivalent of retrieving data or read from the database, and then you have the I have to remember myself now, and post. I think that's for updating or creating new record. And there's the put, which is the either the opposite of will be either updating and creating, which is the opposite, which I'll find out very soon. And finally, you have the delete type of an HTTP request, which is delete. Okay, and then for this week, we're going to talk a little bit more about actually connecting to the database and using Mongodb Driver. So this is the connection which will happen in your node server or the Express server. So once it receives a request from front end, for example, to retrieve some data from database, it needs to actually talk to the database. And so this is where the Mongodb driver comes in. And you already done this similarly, I think maybe in Signia module, and you're using Mongodb driver. I don't know which version that is, but you put it in the front end code, and which will be the equivalent of the view code in our example, and talk to the database directly. Here, the Mongodb driver goes into your Node.js server, and then that will be, say, take over or look after how do you access database. Okay, and also I'm introducing another tool called the Postman. And so when you're creating the REST API, different.
Yeah, wait a second. Wait a second.
I think that door was open for.
Okay, yeah, so I'm introducing another tool called Postman. So when you're creating these REST APIs or routes, and you need to do lots of testing. Last week we showed the tools which called curl, where you can use the command line, the first thing is you can only do get tests in the browser if you just type in URL of the server, and you can't specify if I want to post or delete type of request. That's not possible in the browser URL. And then to test these different types of HTTP requests, last week we introduced some tools called a tool called curl, and which is command line tool, and it is okay. And if you just want to test it once or twice, but if you want to keep doing this over again, and it's probably easier to use some graphic GUI tool. This is where the Postman comes in, and we'll talk more in details later. Let me just quickly check. Okay, that's okay. So we're going to using the latest Mongodb driver for Node. So this database, the Mongodb driver they have the driver for different languages, which allows you to connect to Mongodb in different languages. Okay, so so here we're going to be using the one for Node.js, and you can see there's different versions, and we're going to be using the latest one. So, and the slides was prepared last year, so maybe some update here now. Oh, I didn't. Okay, so the latest version is 4.3. Okay, and this is the part we're going to cover later. Oh, I thought I updated the link. Obviously, I didn't. Okay, and so we're going to be using the native driver. So actually, this link is not important. Oh, okay. Actually, before that, so some of you might heard of a library, something like a Mongoose. And if you haven't heard it, that's completely fine, because we're not going to use that. And the reason is, something like this, like a Mongoose, what it does, it enforces a fixed schema on database. And so, for example, it says a collection, all the JSON documents in one collection, and each of these JSON documents should have 3 attributes. First one is called title, second one is called price, and third one is called location. Okay, and so this is very common if you're coming from a relational database background, because if you use any relational database, for example, MySQL, And before you can, when you create the table, you have to specify schema. You have to specify how many columns it has, what are the data types for each columns. So, and also this is quite useful to ensure the data is consistent. And for example, if you have a collection of the lesson information or product information, and you say you define the schema, say each of them have to have a attribute or key called the price, and then you can make sure there always be price information there, and that can be useful. Okay, but this is more like a more philosophical point. So, and the fundamental principles of NoSQL database, which MongoDB is one of the examples, or JSON, is being schemaless. So they are designed to not having a schema and as in the relational table. Okay. And so because of that, so we want to just to show you, and it's actually easier when you don't have a schema, what it's going to look like and how. And obviously you have to be more careful, but that also means, and you can put in different type of JSON objects in the same collection, which would not be possible. And if you're using, say, something like Mongoose. And also, if we use something like this and introduce extra things we have to cover, and unfortunately we don't have time for, and it's actually not something you can cover in a slide or two to use something like Mongoose. So we will not be using that. Okay, so going back to talking about the Mongodb driver, and you can actually, the Node.js driver, you can just install as a Node.js module, just as you install for any other modules like and say Express. So you just run command, npm install, and then say MongoDB. Oh, I lost all the changes. Okay, so so if you want to install the MongoDB driver, you just say npm install and followed by the module name or the package name, just called the MongoDB. Okay, and then here's the thing to be careful and don't say npm install Mongo, and because the Mongo itself is a package called the Mongo, but that's not the driver we need here, and the package name is called the MongoDB. Okay, and scrap that, and this is the part I think I removed, but it's somehow still there. So this is, and you actually for these packages, and you can't install globally, and you have to install it every time you create a new Node.js project. So every time you create a new project, you have to install to run npm install MongoDB. And then once you install, you should have something similar like this, and in your package.json file. Actually, and I might just do it. So this should be done for you automatically. Let me turn this thing off. This doesn't bug me. Okay, let me just do this quickly. I need a new folder first. Demo. I'm gonna open this in the Visual Studio Code. Okay, move down this side. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna do demo. We're gonna close this one. That's the one I did earlier. And then we're gonna create We're just checking. Okay, I'm gonna go to the demo. npm init. So I'm starting a new node project, and it will ask you some questions. Package name, I'm gonna call this MongoDB demo. Version, description, entry point. Okay, just to call test command, nothing. Okay. It will not do anything and except creating this mongodb.json file, and currently it doesn't have anything in there. What is the wrapping of the yeah, okay. And then we need a couple of minimum. We need the Express and the MongoDB. These are the two we need. So we have to npm here, npm install Express and MongoDB. So I think you can run, just list all the packages you want to install. Okay. And then, yeah, you can see now it's installed. These are the versions of the MongoDB and the Express are added to my package.json file. And you can see there's this file node_modules directory, which contains actual files for these two modules. Okay, and that's all we need in terms of getting the MongoDB driver. That's it. Now it's installed, you can actually using it in your code. Okay, I'm gonna skip this part because it's not relevant. Okay, and once we once we have the MongoDB driver, we can go back to actually creating the REST API or creating a different route and to read data or insert data into a database. Okay, the main file is called server.js, and I think I named it slightly differently here. In the package.json, we're going to call it, the main one will be the index.js. Okay, and we need to import the dependencies, which is Express, and we also need to import the Mongo a little bit later, but this is the part we have done many times already. Okay, and create an instance. Okay, and then to extract the parameters from the request, we need the body parser. Okay, and this is what you need to do. And for the new Express version, you can use just app.use and express.json. So that's the equivalent of this to get all the parameters from the incoming string. Okay, I'm gonna just do this, add these to our code first. So, okay, and so first, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create my start script. So what we'll do is I'm gonna use node_mo. If you remember, this is the kind of a module which will automatically restart the server every time the text is changed. And okay, I'm gonna call it index.js just purely because when I set it up, I choose the index.js. Okay, and then we need to actually create the file now. For example, create a file. Yeah, that's the place I want, called index.js. Okay, and then we do these things, and we import the Express module, create an app, and then run this, and just to get all the parameters, and from the input or the request string later on. Okay, and so forgot now. Okay. So constant express equal to require express, and then equal to express. So that's creating, and then finally app.use express. Yeah. Okay. So that's first three line, and we talked about here. Okay, and next part is actually connecting to the database. So we're going to be using the MongoDB module we just installed. Okay, you need the Mongo client object. So in this case, the Node.js server, it is a client, whereas the server is a MongoDB server itself. Okay, and so that's what it is called, MongoDB client. Okay. So it's part of the driver. So this is, and what you need to do to get the MongoDB client for connecting. Let me see if I can remember this. Mongo client equal to require that MongoDB. Okay. Small case. Okay. Or maybe close this one. Yeah. Okay. And then, so that's the, and very similar to this part. So we require the modules we want to use and get the Mongo client object from there. And then we can use that to connect to the database. Okay, and so this is the, so this, and it's just a variable which will be referenced to the database you want to connect to in the MongoDB server. So as we see, you can create multiple databases, and you need to select which database you want to connect to. Okay, and then you say Mongo client, which is this one, dot connect. Okay, and this will be the URL of your MongoDB. And obviously the example shown here is you connecting to a local MongoDB. So we'll show you later how do you connect to a remote server, which is the Atlas, which is online. Okay, and you have a callback function, and they will return error and the client. If you do this properly, you probably want to check if there's error. If there's error, you output to the console. And if there's no error, and you can actually, this is the connection. The client actually can give you the connections to the database. And you say client.db. This allows you to select a database from the MongoDB you connect to. And in our case, we're going to select web store. If you remember here, we have a database called web store. And then this will be stored in the variable DB. So then later on, any places we need a database, we can just refer to using DB. Yeah. So this is what we will do now. Also, and interesting. And also a very small thing here, we define the variable here without giving it any value. And we didn't define the variable here. We didn't say let db equal to client.db here. Is because if we define the variable db here, it is only accessible inside this function, this anonymous function, and you can't use it later in the rest of the code. That's why we define it here and then give it the values inside the callback function here. Okay, and so we say Mongo client dot connect. Okay, this string we're gonna type add in later, and then we're gonna have the callback, which will have the error and client returned. Okay. Yeah, and then in the actual callback function, we just select a particular database we want to. Yes. Okay, and so now you have a connection to the database and you select the particular database, connection to MongoDB, and this is the particular collection, sorry, database you selected. And then later on we can say, and retrieving data from this database by say retrieving documents from a particular collection, or insert documents to a collection in using this DB. Okay, and if you need to connect to a remote database, you also will need username password. So when we connect to the cloud database, we'll need to username password. And the format might be slightly different in the sense you could put the username password in front in the connecting string. Okay, and this is okay. And if you know other people don't access to your code, and this also required if you want to say the code to run automatically. Otherwise, it will ask you to. You could just put in username, and then it will ask you to type in the password every time, or sometimes even give you an error. Okay, so the next part is actually to find out what is the URL for your MongoDB Atlas. So if you go to the MongoDB page, and if it's not connected, then connect it to the cluster, which you already did. And then, just choose the connect cluster option, and then you will see these options.
Question, yeah.
With MongoDB Shell, and this means you can install a MongoDB command line interface locally. I think you start by just typing Mongo. And if you're typing Mango or something like that, it does not find it because I didn't install it. But that's Mongo Shell. And this is what we need. Connect to our application, which is our Node.js. And then also you can connect using MongoDB Campus. And we talked about this option last week when we talked about the campus. So here I'm going to select this one. And then after that, it gives you the URL. Something like that.
Do we need to connect both ways, or one of the ways using the campus can be fine?
Okay, so, and you have to use this. And so connecting campus only allows you to connect to MongoDB using the graphical tool, GUI tool. In there, you can say create a collection and insert documents, for example, but you will not be able to write any JavaScript code. So here we want to create a Node.js server which connects to the MongoDB. We have to use this second one.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and then you get to choose what type of driver, and depends on the language and also the version of the driver, which will be slightly different. Last year it was 3.6, that's why it shows here. Okay, and this is the code that you need. So that one give you the URL of your online MongoDB. Okay, and so you just copy it, and then here you would have this part, which is the username and password. If you remember, we talked about that in the slides here. If you want to connect it, you can put that inside, and it did not actually give you the password directly here. They ask you to type it in the code later. And similarly here, and the database name. So actually, this particular example we're showing here actually selecting a database already, and whereas we don't. So we don't actually need anything after the slash. We just need the first part, which connect to the database. And we do the selection of the actual database. Later use just this part, which allows you to select the database.
I want to ask you about the region.
The region?
Regions. To select regions, like.
You mean here or?
No, on the cluster.
Cluster.
That
here?
one, yeah. Region. And the cluster.
You mean
type.
here?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is something you select when you first created the MongoDB on Atlas. It will ask you to choose which server you want. So they have servers in different parts of the world. So this is in North Virginia, so it's the eastern side of the America. You can choose European one, so west side of America. This is, I think, once you created the MongoDB on Atlas, you can't change this one. Does that answer the question? Or
Yes. So any of them, to be alright, yeah.
yeah, any of them will be fine. And so usually you would choose something which is closer. For example, if you can choose something which is in UK, that's give you faster access. But really, you would not really see the difference whether the server is in UK or in America. Just because the internet speed and the difference is not as we as human can really tell. Okay. Okay, and so we're going to do this one now. We're going to go back to, I think, database. Yeah, and the interface looks slightly different now compared to this. I think they probably just updated the Atlas, so it looks slightly different now, but still you choose connect. You will have these options, and you still choose connect to your application. And then this will be the one. Okay. So actually, really all we need is just this part. We go back here to the code. And so this is what I need to put in here. Okay. And then, so this is actually the URL for your MongoDB Atlas. So your code will be a bit different, especially this part. And I think that specifies different MongoDB servers. I need to find out what my password is. So your password will be different. That will be the password is set up. So this is my username. I think the password is CST3145. Let me just double check. Atlas. Okay. It's a different one. Ah, no, it is correct. Yeah. Okay, and in your case, it will be a bit different. And then this should give you a connection now, actually allows you to connect to the MongoDB. Let me just check how we are doing in terms of time. Time-wise. Okay, we might have to go slightly faster. We're about halfway through. Okay, we'll cover this part. Okay, and now we connect to the database and we can do something to now, for example, retrieving data and later to insert data. Okay, and then this app.parameters allows you to do something, basically passing the URL that you get from the request. Okay, and for example, you can get the collection name from the passing. So if you remember last week, so we can set a route and which has a variable, and that's the values we can get from when the user sends it. So we should have the example, but we'll see some examples later on. But in this case, we predefined a variable in the URL that user have to give it the value to, and the name for that variable is called the collection name. So user can use that value to specify which collection in the MongoDB and they want to say either retrieve data or store some data. And then to get the values of that variable out of the request URL, you do something like this. Okay, and so this is the function or the express function to get particularly variables out of the request URL. So it just says, okay, I want to get collection name, and then you have the request, results, next, and the collection name. This collection name is here. Okay, and so this is the incoming request, so including the URL and some other information about the reason. And this is what you will send back, short for results, which initially will be empty. Next, you will remember, so this is used in the so-called middleware. That means you would call next at the end. So with the call next function, that's all it does. And so it will run all these different middleware in the orders they appear in the code. And finally, the collection name. So that will be the values we're going to be using in the actual code. And so here it just says request dot collection equal to db.collection collection name. Okay, and so this is selecting a collection in the MongoDB. And so if you remember early on in the actual code, here we said client.db web store. That's how we select a database from the MongoDB server. Okay, so now the DB is referred to the web store database. Now we do db.collection collection name, for example, called products. Then this will select the products collection from the MongoDB, and that will be stored in here. And then later on, if we need to do anything about the collection, for example, read something from there, we're going to just refer to request.collection variable. Okay, so we're going to do that now here. Name. So obviously, and we need to define what this name should be called in our route define later, and we're going to do that this one later. Results, and that will be also next, and then collection name. Okay, and so these are all the kind of parameters as a return and for you to use in the callback function. And we say the request dot collection equal to db dot collection. No, it's not recognized here. Interesting. Did I misspell collection name? Okay, yeah, misspelled it here. So it's not recognized the collection name. Okay. Oh, still not so happy. Okay. That's fine. And this line is just for whatever next in your code. So it doesn't just stop here or end here. What is this? Okay, I don't need this either. Okay, and so now essentially this part is to select a collection from the database you want to read data or insert data into. So first we connect, which is this part. And then we select a database, which is essentially this line. Now we select a collection from the database. So you can see here, we didn't actually pick a particular collection because this will depend on whatever the user request is. User would include the collection name in the inquest URL. Yeah, and so the user URL would be something like this. It have /collection and /column collection name. So this column means whatever afterwards and is a variable. And then later on in our code, we can refer to or get the values here by referring to this name. So this collection name has to be the same as this collection name. Okay. Now we can starting to set up all the route or the APIs. And sometimes, if you didn't set a root response, basically that means the path is / didn't have anything there. And if you didn't set a path there, and you might get the impression the server is not running or something, it's not working properly. But that's just purely because you didn't set up response there, and this actually might be working fine. Okay, and so here we just add a very simple pass here, just to say if you just type in the server address, and it will give you some response, so you know it's running. Okay, and so we're gonna just do. So this is actually doing the REST API route now. And so app.get means the type of HTTP request will be get. And the path it's going to respond to is this /, that's the root path. And then the rest will be the same. Oh. Here would have the request, response, so all the result or response, and then next. Okay, and all we do is just say response.send. Okay, here we actually give users some information to say, okay, and if you want to retrieve information from a collection, you have to do using, say, a path like this. And you can also just say something, and welcome to the MongoDB Express, something like that. And that's completely fine. And all it does is just give you some message if you just access the root of the server instead of nothing, which makes you think it might not be running or something wrong. Okay, and this is actually the more interesting part now. So this is actually we're starting to do something to the database. And so obviously the first one we're going to try is get, and we're going to try to retrieve some information from the database. So we're going to do something very simple here. All we do is just retrieve all the record from the database. Okay, and here we need to use the find. And if you remember, this is actually very similar to the MongoDB command you would type in the MongoDB client otherwise. Okay, and you can see now here, and we say app.get. So this is responding to get type of request. Now the path is a bit different. It's no longer just a slash. So it has to say slash collection and then slash column collection name. Okay, as we said, so the column here means this is a variable. So user actually does not have to type column connection name in the request URL. Instead, it should replace this with the actual collection they want to retrieve data from, for example. Okay, and then these things will be the same as before. Okay, and then the different part will be the here. Okay, and as I mentioned before, this part would store the value or the refer to the collection whose name is specified here. Okay, and that's the case because we had this part here. We said request.collection, which is a request.collection equal to db.collection collection name. So the db is the MongoDB we selected here, and it's selecting a collection in database using .select.collection function, and this collection name is this connection name, and it will get value because we run this one here. Okay, so essentially, so this will be the connection, so the collection in MongoDB selected, and you do a find command, and here we had empty curly bracket, and that just basically means we don't have any conditions. That means we retrieve everything. Okay, and then we turn this one to an array, and then this will be sent back to the server, the MongoDB server. Okay, and so E means if there's error, and you will return the error message, and otherwise in the response would send the results. The results would be whatever the search returns. Okay. Okay, and the only other thing I want to mention here is you need this to array. And because this find function itself does not return the actual result, it returns a cursor that points to the result array. So it's just return a pointer, and which points to the beginning of the results, which is usually an array. And that's why you need this. And if you need actual array itself, you need to use this function to array to get the actual results, and then you can send it back here. Okay, and so I'm going to just do that now. So this is my another route, and it's still get type of request. Okay, and but here now, and the path is a bit different. It would say slash collection and then slash column collection name, and this is the variable. We're going to be using that later. Okay, and then again, do we have next? Yes, and we will do. And then here would have the request, response, and next. And inside the actual function itself, we're going to do the request.collection. So So this is this collection here with dot find. So you can imagine if we do something else, we will not use find. For example, if we want to insert or update some command and record it, or collections or JSON objects in the collection, or use different command. Here we're going to just do the find, or we do search. We don't have any search criteria, so just empty curly bracket. And we want to get the actual result, not just the cursor, and then to array. Okay, and then will give me an error and results. Maybe I'll just type in error here just to make it a little more obvious. Here. Okay, and if there is error, we're gonna just return, send back the actual error message, which is the next one. And the return here would finish the function. And if this does not stop, I'm gonna actually send the results back. Okay, I think I should be able to test it now, actually. Okay, and before actually testing, just add a bit more things about this find. So here, previously, we had a find function, and which has nothing in there, just says that means basically retrieves everything. Okay, and the way the find function works is similar. How do you do that in the MongoDB command line tools? And this is probably something you would have done quite a bit last year. You say db.lessons, which says I'm going to do using the lessons collection and find, and you put your criteria here, and you can say .pretty, which actually format it out to make it look a bit nicer. And but in the for say Node.js server, it's a programming reading the results. It doesn't really matter what it looks like. It's completely fine. And but the difference is you can add something inside the bracket, which is to say do some filtering, sorting, etc., etc. Okay, and this is a slightly different one, and you can see here. So in the find, we had this extra condition added in. Okay, and again, so this is another JSON object. It says limit is 5, so that means we only want to 5 results, because the actual database can contain 10, 20, hundreds or thousands results. And we say we sort. Again, you can have multiple sorting criteria. So that's the first curly bracket, sorry, square bracket. And it only has one criteria, which is sort by price. And you have either 1 or -1 here. I think -1 means descending. 1 will means ascending. Okay, and so to retrieve only 5 results and sorted by price, descending. So the most expensive one will return first. And then this bit will be the same afterwards. And so you actually getting the actual array, and once it's complete, you will get both error and results object. If the error is not empty, you return the error message. Otherwise, you send back the results. So this is the same as before. Okay, let me see. So now, and I should be able to run the server now, because if you look at our code, so we request the Express, we request the Mongo, we connect to the MongoDB here, and we have 2 routes. One is the root, which just send a message. The other ones is you can actually retrieve all the records or the JSON object from a particular collection. You can specify the name of the collection. Okay. And so you can test this actually if I run the server now. Listen. Okay. And then I'll say npm start. Oops. Having some errors. Error parsing. Position. Okay, and so I think the error message is complaining about my package.json file. Okay, I missed, so there's error line here. I missed a comma here when I added the start script. Okay, let's try again. Okay, and so that's running now. And if I go open the browser window, I type in localhost. Oh, did I not say localhost is 3000? I think I didn't. What did I do? Oh, okay, I said it's 3000, so it should be fine. So if I type in localhost 3000, you should see this message. Okay, and then if I say /collection, and then if I just say /collection, you would say get some error message like this because there's no route for that, so it will not respond. You need to follow by collection followed by your database name, sorry, your collection name. And so I'm just going to see what are the collections we have. So we can have products. And so this is called the products. And so if I just type in localhost 3000 collections / products. Oops, I'm still having error. I'm not getting anything. I should get some response back actually. Okay, and there's some errors here. Okay, it says count cannot read property of DB of undefined, which happens in line 9. Okay, and so line 9 here.
You need semicolon after DB, line 7.
No, I don't think so. I don't use any semicolons at all in the code. It will be completely fine. Class 10 error.
The client, do you think it's defined? Line 9.
Yeah, or line 8, Mongo, it should be capital. Mongo client.connect.
No.
No, it's the
So
variable
this
there.
Mongo client is this one here. This Mongo client is predefined object in MongoDB module. So it has to have a capital. This one doesn't have to, but this is just any variables. You can give it a name, which should not matter. So basically, I think when they try to run this line, it has error. So that means that either the client part is not working properly. That means this connection is somehow not working. Let me have a quick, yeah, I think hopefully I have example or. I think this is exactly the same. I think the only thing I didn't do is this one, which is about the access control. I'll add that in to see if it actually make any difference. Okay. So first I still do localhost 3000. That's fine. If I go back. Okay. So actually that does make some difference.
I think it's because you have request.collection, I think.
Request.collection.
Yeah. Line 18. I think.
Line 18.
How about using
So
the
what's
full
wrong
URL?
here?
How about in line 13, use the full URL? Because I just did that and it worked for me. Just copy the full URL and just change from my first database. Just write your own database name, and the password. You just change the password, and it works. I think.
Sorry, and you say which line of the code? Or
So you know the URL you copied. So when you open connect, when you click on connect
one?
from the yeah. So you just copy the whole URL and
Yeah.
then you change. Then so if you go to the to the command to the browser and just
Yeah.
click on connect from the compass, Mongo compass.
Yes.
No, from the browser, you're still on the studio code. If you go to the browser, where
No, I
you
think this is what I copied from here. So
yeah, so yeah, from there, click on the connect, yeah, and in the second option, and here if you copy the whole thing and just you replace my first database with the name of your database and the password with the password, because you just copied up until net.
Yeah, and so this part specifies on which database you want to, and then these are just some parameters, optional parameters. Just says how would you want to. It shouldn't affect you. Okay, you can give it a try, but
Also, so you haven't the collections are named collection name. You should change them to product.
you mean this one?
Yeah, all of them, all the collection names.
No. So the collection name is supposed to get it from the URL you send to the request. So if you can see here, it's a bit small. I'm typing in localhost 3000 collection and /products. And that means I want to retrieve everything from the products collection. And then later on, if I want to retrieve something from a different collection, let's say, what else do I have? So orders collection. Then I would type in localhost 3000 collection /orders. So I don't hard code the collection name and in my code, so then user can request different collections they want. Okay, so I'm gonna just do a very simple thing here first. I'm gonna just console log collection. So I just output to the console what the collection name it picked up, and because I think the error message says the error message we're currently having here, it says it cannot read this property of undefined, so you can't get the property. Sorry, the name of the collection, which is in the URL of the user. Okay, and what I can do.
Did you check the URL? What was the issue with that?
Yeah, I can do console.log request URL the request.url. Okay, and so that just outputs the URL from basically the URL typed in the browser, which should be the one. you typed in. So, okay, and if we just, now the server is running again. If we refresh here, okay, we still get the same error, which is expected. I don't see any output here at all. Okay, let me maybe just restart this. And then do npm start. Okay, and then we're gonna go here. Leave this one. We're gonna hide this part. Okay, let's refresh this page again. Okay. So it didn't even get to this part. So I didn't have any console log at all. That means the error happened before that. It says can't read. So it says recollection is not defined. Okay, let me just check here again. Okay, let me just try the other examples. It should work. At least it was working last time. Okay. Huh? Final handler. Okay. npm no handle.
Do you need to make them async maybe?
It is already async, and so you can see those are the callback functions. Most of these are callback functions. These will always wait until you get some response back from the server.
Okay.
So on the line 19, you have console.log. I think you got a space over there as well, between the dot and log. And below you using console only.
Sorry?
So the line 19, you type there console dot space log. And on the
Console
line
dot. No, there's
20,
no space.
yeah. Oh, it looks like
Only
a space.
one.
And you go on the line 20, you go console only.
Oh, but I mean, the problem is, I think, yeah, that's a good point. And but the problem so far, the program, the code stops here.
I
didn't even get
just
to
tried
the-
it. I just tried it and it worked for me. I just changed the URL. I just tried the whole thing. It gave me a response. I don't know why. But yeah.
Okay.
Try just commenting out all the request collection and just print out the request just to see.
Maybe just restart the program. You should work
I
on
don't
it.
know.
Well, someone has better luck than me, and that. Okay. Okay, let me at least try again. So, okay, I couldn't get that working. Okay. CD demo, yeah. Start. Okay, so I hope at least this time, okay, let's just do localhost 3000. It's not doing anything. Okay. And then I'm gonna do collection. Or just make sure I type in the right collection, yeah. And then the collection name I called products slash products.
Oh, it says app crash, no? Just before you enter the
Sorry?
just before you enter the URL,
Yeah.
it crashed the app for some reason.
Yeah.
Just
That's
before.
the error here.
Yeah.
Now it tells me the DB is undefined again.
DB is undefined because it doesn't even know which database to take it from because you didn't specify the database up there.
I think can we try to console log after the DB equal to client.db.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the first error we had. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
that disappeared and then now come back again, this part.
No. I
Huh?
think we can try to console log the DB and see what's inside the DB first. Because it say the DB is undefined, right?
Yeah, the probably they just give you the error.
Inside the callback. If you console log outside the
No, I think it does not make any difference whether it's here or here. It's always run after you do this. And okay.
because it is callback, right? So
yeah. And it's callback and currently it will stop at here. So it doesn't matter whether this line or this line code, and none of them will be, neither of them will be wrong because it will stop here anyway. Okay, let's try again. And if it still doesn't work, we have to just move on to the slides, and because we might have to come back to fix this next week. npm start. Okay, close this side, move to this here, and we refresh.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the chat, Yuri said that if you're sure about the web store, the database name, is it called web store or first data?
It is called web store.
Nah, so that's what I've been telling you. We just need to change the URL, add the name of your database, and that's all the change I made, and it worked for me. So if you copy the exact URL and just change my first database to web store, and just change your password to your password, that's it. It's gonna work. So you go click connect, and you copy the whole URL, and yeah,
Let's try. No, where was the connect string?
Yeah, from here. So you just change the my first database to your one, and you change the password. That's it. It's gonna work because it doesn't even recognize the database. So there's nothing in DB, and when there's nothing in DB, the error is coming up.
Let's clear this one. Okay. No, still the same. Yeah, now it's a slightly different error. It says can't read the collections. Okay, and I'll have to, I mean, I'm pretty sure last year was working somehow, maybe some new changes they made between the last year and this year, and which caused the problem. And I'll come back to this next week. Then yeah, we are very behind. And so so the curl, and we mentioned it last week, it's the command line tools to send different type of requests besides the get. If they also do post, put, and delete, and other types. Okay, but it's not very convenient, and you can actually do a verbose mode, which give you a bit more error, including the error message there. No, maybe I should try. Okay, but what you're gonna be using is actually the called the Postman, and which is a graphical user interface, which allows you to do very similar things. But the good thing is, for example, you don't have to type in the command as complicated as the curl command. For example, something like this is actually not so easy to type in, and also it allows you to save these kind of requests, so you don't have to do it again and again and again. You can also save a collection of requests, say a set of get, post, delete, and put requests, and they can run a collection altogether. Okay, so I have somehow, and I lost the update. So this is still the old version. And so you can get the Postman, and from the Postman website, which is like this. This is already logged in. And so let me see. So it's a software. It's still logging me in. Let me log out first. I just want Postman. Please give me the website. Okay, and so that's something like this. And it's a software which you can download. Where is it? Okay, here is the link for download. So the Windows and Mac and Linux. Okay, and I think since last year, and they had a web version. That means you don't have to download anything, and you can run it online. And so that's what I'm going to be using. Now I forgot. Is that Google? Okay, and then where is my updated? Okay, give me 1 second. Let me check. Where is my changes? Did I just change the old one? Sorry, just opening another slides PDF file, which somehow take a very long time to load. Wow, it does not even want to load the PDF file. Okay, give me a second. Okay, that doesn't have anyone either. Okay, and anyway, so this is the Postman, and then what you need to do is to create a workspace. And so I already had one. If you first come in, you probably will not have one. Okay, and then you can starting to create your kind of API test request here. I'm gonna go back to my slides. Okay. Okay, I probably would show you the things I have created here. And so first, and they have this concept called collections, and collection is just like a folders. And I have 3 collections after school, demo, and pet store. And then inside each collections, and you have these different requests you saved. So in the pet store, I have these ones. You can actually see in the front, this is to get, to post, another get, another put, another delete. Tells you different type of these ones. And if you click that one, you can see, and this request is to get, and that's the local host 3000. Okay, and I think at least that one should be running. Let me just get the server running. npm start. Okay, and now if I choose send, okay, yeah, so it looks like I still have to install the local one, and because it says and cannot send requests to the local host, and so if you, so in that case we still need the local version. Go back here, and so if you do, and if you click, you have a local version installed, and you say click send, and you would see the response here. Okay, and then you can create multiple requests. For example, here I said I'm gonna do localhost 3000/collections/products, and if I click send, if it is a local version, your response will be here, including error message. And also I can add a new request. I say new HTTP request, and we're going to save this into my pet store collection. The request name will be test demo, save, and I'm going to do get localhost 3000. Okay, and then you click save. Now you have a new request here, which is a test, and which that will be URL. And every time you click this one, it will rerun. And you can even here, there should be one, but anyway, so this is a different one. So this one is a post, and you have the URL. And so every time you click this, it will send a post request to this URL, and with some other values that will be added to the database because it's a toast. And okay, we'll stop there now. So we didn't manage to cover quite a bit of things. And I think more importantly is later on to create a different type of request, the route for different type of requests. So it's for the post and for the put, etc., and how do you test with those? And we're going to continue from here next week on. And okay, I'll stop there. And is any questions before we end? And I need to check the code and to see why it's not working this time. Okay, that's it. I'll see you later and in the lab. And just remember, I think this week the lab is in person and we're doing the demo for the group work. So you need to be there. And if for whatever reason you can't join, and send me an email just to say why you can't join.
Is that group work for